I'm Liz Faublis, and this is Currents. Standing firm in the faith amid a wall of opposition.
New York City is the capital abortion of the country. It's a nomenclature that we wish we didn't have.
Plus, New York's bishops weigh in on a minimum wage fight. And an event unlike any other in Times Square.
It's beautiful to see a manifestation of something that's deeper, something that's interior, something that's spiritual.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. First, the contraception mandate. Could an abortion mandate be next? In a recent interview with Vatican Radio, Oakland Bishop Salvatore Cordileone says a federal mandate requiring abortion coverage in health care plans is not outside the realm of possibility. And regardless of how many people speak out against abortion, their efforts are met with very vocal opposition. That has manifested itself here in New York City in the form of legislation aimed at restricting advertising by pro-life pregnancy centers and limiting the activities of pro-life sidewalk counselors. One man at the center of it all is Monsignor Philip Riley, founder of the pro-life group Helpers of God's Precious Infants. This past weekend at St. Ephrem Parish in Dyker Heights, Monsignor Riley spoke at the annual communion breakfast of the Life Center of New York, where we were reminded of a pejorative nickname given to the city by those on the pro-life side.
New York City is the capital abortion of the country. It's a nomenclature that we wish we didn't have.
Bless us, O Lord, and these your gifts, which we are about to receive from your goodness, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Monsignor. Thank you. Okay, everyone, to the food. Today is an annual communion breakfast that we have each year, the Life Center. That's what we are. We're a pro-life crisis pregnancy center. Secular relativism is a predominant philosophy that we're facing today in our country and throughout the world, I believe. And what it says is that there's no right or wrong, and you do whatever you want. We wanted to have our dear Monsignor Riley, who's on our advisory board, give an expose of that.
1967, they were trying to legalize abortion in New York State. We went from a culture of life to a culture of death. No, in the law, we placed our values, and they were based on Judeo-Christian ethics. The wisdom that one generation has that hands on to the next, that wisdom, it's contained normally in the law. The law cannot always stop evil, but it must not legalize evil as a good and protect it in the law.
Abortion is not being enforced upon me. I'm not being allowed to stop abortion, okay? So there's not much difference between ourselves and China. See, there's a profound difference between saying you can't stop everybody from having an abortion, you can't stop everybody from not praying, but by God, you must not legislate no prayer in public. No child is to be protected by the law. You legislate all this evil and no one resists because they're brainwashed into choice.
We've been brainwashed to believe that it's not an unborn baby, and it is. And, you know, until we help change the hearts and minds of America, this Holocaust, we call it, is going to continue.
I would say we have a good 80 to 90% success rate, and we do whatever we can to direct a woman away from an abortion.
Well, we're not getting the girls we used to get in, because I think it's the morning after pill. And a lot more is done in secret.
I was a teacher and I saw it in the public schools. I saw a lot of secular relativism getting pushed. I'd like to do something to help. And right now I haven't figured out exactly where I'm going with it, but I'm going to try to find a good way.
The feminist movement, I believe, established a culture of death in a sense that it said a woman has a right to do whatever she wants with her body, but that's not what is right. What about the child? The child in the womb has nothing to say. It's a living creature, a life like you and I were when we were conceived.
Go to the streets and proclaim God. Go to the streets and proclaim the sacredness of life. You go to the streets in prayer and peace and proclaim no one has the right. You must resist to save your souls.
And there's more currents ahead. The Vice President's candid views on same-sex marriage. We'll have that and the rest of the day's headlines after the break. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. Vice President Joe Biden may be in disagreement with his church and his president on the issue of same-sex marriage. Biden, who is Catholic, talked about his stance during an appearance yesterday on NBC's Meet the Press.
I just think that the good news is that as more and more Americans come to understand what this is all about is a simple proposition. Who do you love? Who do you love? And will you be loyal to the person you love? And that's what people are finding out is what all marriages at their root are about. Whether they're marriages of lesbians or gay men or heterosexuals.
Is that what you believe now?
That's what I believe.
And you're comfortable with same-sex marriage now?
Look, I am Vice President of the United States of America. The President sets the policy. I am absolutely comfortable with the fact that men marrying men, women marrying women, and heterosexual men and women marrying men are entitled to the same exact rights, all the civil rights, all the civil liberties. And quite frankly, I don't see much of a distinction beyond that.
And Biden said he did not know if President Obama would support same-sex marriage if he were elected to a second term. A spokesman for the VP said Biden's views mirror those of the president, and that is that the White House opposes any efforts to roll back the rights of same-sex couples. Biden's faith was the subject of some scrutiny during the 2008 presidential election. The Bishop of Scranton said Biden would not be allowed to receive communion in the diocese because of his support of abortion rights. Now, that announcement was noteworthy as Biden was born in Scranton. Another commencement controversy, this time from one of the country's premier Catholic institutions. The Cardinal Newman Society is calling on Georgetown's president to rescind an invitation to have Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius speak at the school's spring commencement. Sebelius is scheduled to speak at Georgetown's Public Policy Institute commencement, which will take place next Friday, May 18th. She's believed to have been the driving force behind the Obama administration's contraception mandate, which the U.S. bishops strongly oppose. The bishops have called for a fortnight of freedom beginning at the end of June, during which Catholics are asked to pray and take action to oppose the mandate. Pope Benedict is calling on American Catholic colleges to reaffirm their Catholic identities. The Pope's remarks came during a meeting with bishops from Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Wyoming who were at the Vatican for their ad limina visits. Although he noted efforts by colleges to renew their Catholic identity, Pope Benedict said that, quote, much remains to be done. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer has signed a bill that bans Planned Parenthood from receiving public funding. The bill prohibits any government entity in Arizona, city, county, or state from giving money to organizations that even indirectly fund abortions. In a statement, Brewer says the measure closes loopholes to ensure taxpayer dollars are not used to pay for abortions. Last month, Brewer signed a bill that banned most abortions after the 20th week of pregnancy. More bad news for the Protestant pastor in Iran who is currently on death row. A Muslim lawyer who has worked on his case has been sentenced to 9 years in jail. The lawyer told the UK newspaper The Guardian that he has been convicted of acting against the national security, spreading propaganda against the regime, and keeping banned books at home. Now, the lawyer says he was in court defending someone else when he was told of his own sentence. The lawyer has represented the Christian pastor who was told he would need to convert back to Islam in order to avoid the death penalty. The pastor has been on death row in Iran since September of 2010. The Archbishop of Dublin has called for an investigation into abuse allegations against a deceased Irish priest. Archbishop Diarmuid Martin says there needs to be an independent inquiry into accusations against the priest, who was found guilty of 17 counts of abuse in 1994. Now, he later pled guilty to 74 additional counts of abuse. He died in jail in 1997. The case recently gained renewed interest following a BBC News show claiming Irish Cardinal Sean Brady did not pass along details of abuse allegations during a 1975 investigation of the priest. At the time, Brady was a priest of the Diocese of Kilmore. The Cardinal says the BBC program, quote, set out to deliberately exaggerate and misrepresent my role in these events. Brady said he was a note taker during that investigation. Pope Benedict swore in 26 new members of the Swiss Guard. The ceremony is held each May 6 on the anniversary of the 1527 sack of Rome, when 147 Swiss Guards died protecting Pope Clement VII. Each member of the Guard must be Swiss, Catholic, and under age 30. Their main duties are to protect the Pope and assist at Vatican functions. The Pope told the new recruits that their work is part of a tradition of unquestionable fidelity to the Pope. He encouraged the new guards to help and support each other in their work. For the first time in his pontificate, Pope Benedict will attend a public concert. On June 1st, Benedict will visit La Scala for a performance of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Conductor Daniel Barenboim will lead the performance, which will include a symphony orchestra choir and 4 vocal soloists. The Pope typically attends special concerts held at the Vatican's Pope Paul VI Auditorium. It will be the second concert in less than a month for Benedict. This Friday, Riccardo Muti will conduct the Rome Opera House in selections from Vivaldi and Verdi. That concert will take place at the Vatican. And first the NBA championship, now a doctor. Shaquille O'Neal, who retired last June after a 19-year career in the NBA, received his doctoral degree in education from Barry University, a Catholic college in Florida. According to a press release from the school, O'Neal attended classes on campus and via satellite classrooms. He began his studies previous to his retirement from the NBA. Following Saturday's graduation ceremony, he spoke about his latest accomplishment.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank Barry University, Dr. Kopp, Dean Piper, Sister Linda for accepting me 5 years ago. Would mostly like to thank my mother, Lucille O'Neal, and my father, Philip Harrison, who always pressured me to keep on learning. You know, they prepared me for the day of retirement way back in 1991. When I left LSU to go early. It was like, you know what, you're going to retire one day, but you need to further your education. And thought it was the right thing to do for my children, for everyone's children. Thought it was the right thing to do for society. So kids, if you're listening to me now, parents do know best. Listen to your parents, respect your parents. It's a proud moment for me. I'm glad to be here. You know, the work was very rigorous, but very enjoyable, and it was fun. And I'm not done. I think I'm gonna try law school next. Thinking about it. We'll see. But again, thanks for coming out. Thank Barry University, and it was a lot of other graduates here today. Congratulations to them and their family. I don't want to steal their limelight.
O'Neal earned a 3.8 grade point average and completed 54 credit hours. Pretty impressive. Stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Coming up, New York's bishops hope for a spirit of cooperation to raise the minimum wage. Welcome back. U.S. bishops are speaking out once again about an issue that concerns many of us still struggling in this pretty tough economy, making ends meet. Last week, New York State bishops released a statement to legislators. In it, Cardinal Timothy Dolan and his brother bishops said it is becoming increasingly difficult for the working poor of our state to pay for the most basic necessities like food, medicine, and clothing. Church leaders went on to urge lawmakers to consider a modest increase in the minimum wage, which is now at $7.25 an hour, lower than that in 18 states and the District of Columbia. The Assembly Speaker, Sheldon Silver, a Manhattan Democrat, is seeking to raise the wage to $8.50 an hour. The Republican majority in the state Senate has insisted that raising the minimum wage would hurt the state's business climate and therefore do more harm than good for poor New Yorkers. Governor Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat, has neither endorsed nor opposed Mr. Silver's proposal. Dennis Paus is the Director of Communications for the New York State Catholic Conference. He and I had an in-depth discussion earlier today about the bishop's position on this very critical issue. Dennis, in order to clarify for our viewers, the New York State Catholic Conference is the voice of the bishops of New York State in matters of public policy, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, now you're joining us today to discuss a very critical matter for the church leaders, which is bishops are calling for a modest increase in minimum wage. Can you sum up for us their main concerns at this point?
Yes, it's rather simple, actually. Catholic social teaching does stress that people have a right to work, and that work is an essential part of human dignity. And along with that comes the right to a just wage. And it's not really for the church to say this is a just wage and that's not a just wage, but it's not, at a certain point it does become obvious when a wage is unjust. And the bishops are concerned that the current minimum wage in New York State, which is $7.25 an hour, is not a just wage, and it could border on exploitive of workers because we are in a bad economy, as everyone knows, and people are increasingly desperate. But we should be encouraging people to work rather than to be on welfare. And if the minimum wage is $4,000 below the poverty level for a full-time worker, that's just not a just wage. That's not something you could feed your family on or take care of your family. And simply, it needs to change. It needs to be raised, at least modestly, to help these folks who are at the lowest end of the economic ladder.
And Dennis, our bishops speak often with legislators up in Albany. Why do lawmakers that you or the bishops have spoke with oppose raising the minimum wage? What reason do they give?
Well, simply there are a number of folks, primarily in the Republican majority in the Senate, believe that it would be a job killer, that businesses would lay workers off rather than having to pay that little bit of extra in their paychecks, and we don't certainly dispute the good intentions of the Senate Republicans here. We think that we recognize their concerns, but we also believe that there are just as many on the other side who think that that would not occur, and in fact there have been some studies to show that would not occur. So the bottom line for the bishops, again, we're not partisan. Political activists here. We're not neither Republican nor Democrat. The bottom line is we have to speak to the poor and vulnerable. We speak for the worker, for the working person. And we urge both sides really to come together and to at least compromise and see if there's something that could be done for these lowest-end workers.
And Dennis, the unofficial proposal is to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $8.50. In the opinion of the bishops and legislators, would that even be enough to help those lower-income wage earners, or is this just a start?
Well, it would certainly help. Multiply that per hour for an 8-hour day, and then 40 hours a week, and throughout the year. That it does work out to several hundred or a couple $1,000s extra a year. Sometimes that's just the difference. When you're living on the margins and you're right on the edge of homelessness or hunger, every little bit helps. And we think it's certainly, we don't want to just call it a start, because we think that would be a significant step for the state to take. And it would put us right in line but not the highest. It would put us in line with a number of other states in the country that have taken that step. There are others that are even higher.
And Dennis, Bishop Howard Hubbard has suggested in past interviews that as a sign of good faith, Catholic institutions should probably consider perhaps raising minimum wage for their workers in the Catholic Church and Catholic institutions who are paid that lower salary, to kind of help to get the ball rolling. Now, I want to say nothing's written in stone and this is not official, but how viable is that as an option?
Well, I honestly would have to defer to the employers themselves, the bishops and the folks who are under them. There are not a tremendous amount of workers working for the church who would be minimum wage workers, is my understanding. And those that are, I think Bishop Hubbard had said, and certainly he'd be willing to take that step in his diocese. And it'd be up to an individual bishop to make that symbolic step in his diocese. And if we're gonna talk the talk, I guess we need to walk the walk. And where there are, it would be certainly something that bishops could consider doing where feasible.
And Dennis, I also want to make the point that bishops make a pretty good case. As pastors, they have a really keen vantage point. They really oversee the largest non-governmental network of health, education, and charitable ministries in the state. Have lawmakers given this enough consideration?
The session isn't over yet, and we do believe that they're going to continue to consider it. It may very well become a part of sort of an end-of-year deal-making thing. Usually you see a barrage of deals cut at the end, or you get this and I get that kind of thing. But you're right, the bishops have that vantage point of seeing firsthand in their in the ministries that they oversee, and hearing from their Catholic Charities agencies, large numbers of large increases in people coming to food pantries, seeking emergency cash assistance for rent or heat, and that kind of thing. Catholic Charities, over the last few years, has seen enormous increases in the number of folks coming to them for help, and we're certainly willing to provide that help as best we can. But we think it points to a larger problem, in that the disparity, the economic inequality in this country is just getting greater, and wages have to be just. They have to be fair, and we don't believe the current minimum wage in New York State, with the high cost of living we have in New York State, is fair.
All right, Dennis, thank you so much. That is the final word. I really do appreciate your joining us today, and we're certainly going to keep our eye out as this develops. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Liz. I do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I should mention that last week, Pope Benedict expressed concern about the potential effects of the economic downturn on society. In a speech to foreign diplomats on May 4th, Pope Benedict said that the present global economic crisis has brought, quote, more and more families to an increasingly precarious situation. Benedict added that when poverty coexists with the very rich, a perception of unfairness is born that can become a source of rebellion, and that at the heart of all future economic policy has to be the good of the human person. Stay tuned. There's more Currents ahead. When we return, this Times Square event is all about Mary.
I absolutely believe that it unifies the church to have so many images of Mary.
And finally tonight, there's less than a week to go before Mother's Day. Still time to get that gift for Mom and put that card in the mailbox. It's also that time of year when Catholics celebrate the month of Mary, and they kicked things off in a big way on Saturday. For the second year in a row, the church held an event known as One World, One Mother, which brought the Blessed Virgin Mary to the streets of Times Square.
Mary she's the new Eve. So Eve is obviously the mother of all peoples, according to the flesh. And so, of course, she's the mother of all the different cultures that are out there. And that's the beautiful thing, is that she knows how to communicate to each culture, to each person, to each heart. Right? And she wants to be a mother and bring us closer.
Today is the second annual One World, One Mother procession, mass and procession to Duffy Square. And the purpose of this day is to honor Our Lady. This is the month of May.
We are honoring our Blessed Mother as the Mother of the world. One world, one mother.
So we have gathered about 59 images of Our Lady representing different countries, different ways that these countries view her. And we process with them while we say the rosary and sing hymns to Duffy Square and then back to this beautiful Church of Holy Innocents.
I absolutely believe that it unifies the church to have so many images of Mary. You look around and the world is completely different in its images. We're all different shapes and sizes and colors. So why shouldn't our mother, why shouldn't Mary represent so many different images?
Today I felt the heavy devotion that I have toward Mother Mary, how she's always comforted me all my life. And today was just a confirmation and expression of great gratitude toward her.
I always hoped I would be reciting the rosary in Times Square.
I never thought I'll be reciting the rosary in Times Square.
I was pleasantly surprised that the attendance was double of last year.
Having a procession in Times Square and displaying our faith isn't really, out of the ordinary. People have been doing it for many years. Processions in Europe, this is Corpus Christi processions, We're doing it today because that's part of who we are. Mary is our mother. She's the mother of all of New York, too, and all of New Yorkers. And everybody that, walks up and down Times Square, she's their mother, too.
I think the public knows that Mary's there. I just think we were an awesome reminder today that she's never gone.
Me participating today, I just wish that the people will open their hearts and be more compassionate and feel more nurturing toward everyone. And my biggest wish is peace.
Above all, it's a public manifestation of faith, right? We live in such a material world, and so we're looking at all these billboards in the middle of Times Square. It's beautiful to see a manifestation of something that's deeper, something that's interior, something that's spiritual. And hopefully, at least while they take their pictures on their iPhones or whatever it is, maybe they stop by and a couple of them joined us. At least hopefully they'll stop and think a little bit deeper about the spiritual life and begin their search for God, or deepen their search for God.
And that is all for this edition of Currents. Tomorrow, another commencement controversy, this one involving a member of the Obama administration. Plus, we'll check out a senior prom for an older crowd. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.